It's a special Saturday live edition of Locked On Warriors. Kylen Mills is hurting, but we got just enough energy to talk Warriors. They did win. We found out about a huge players-only meeting earlier that morning. We're going to talk about that, what went right, what went wrong, and so much more. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter while I'm still on there, while it still exists, at Dog Surf Roadshow. Kylen, I want to, good afternoon, by the way. I hope you're doing okay. I know you had some fun last night. A little envious. I know you're struggling today, but you must have had fun, right? I mean,
yes. So my women's soccer team, competitive soccer team, had our end of season party last night, and I just don't do well doing anything after 10 p.m. these days. So I'm struggling a little bit, mostly just because I'm tired, but it was fun. It was fun. We went to like our sponsor bar is like a soccer pub, Irish kind of themed place. So it was fun. I like those kind of bars over, like more of a clubby scene or something like that.
Absolutely.
So it was a good time. Also, we might have a photo bomber in my shot if you're watching this on YouTube.
And we're going live today. So I want to start the show off with the Warriors won last night. I feel like if Kerr had made just one minor tweak to his rotation, they could have won by 30 instead of, I don't even know what the final score was, but they still won handily. But in the post game, we learned some very fascinating information. And Jermichael Green will enlighten us. Here's Jermichael.
What was helpful about the meeting? You mentioned this morning.
We addressed the elephants in the room. We had that hard conversation that a lot of people don't want to have. But, we had that conversation. It was much needed. And I think it got people more focused and locked in into what we had to do as a team.
So they had a meeting. Now, usually that's usually a good thing. I'm a huge fervent supporter of interpersonal communication, which basically involves talking to someone instead of just typing things out on a screen. I think it's healthy. The team had a meeting. Kylen, what do you think the meeting was about? What do you think that elephant or elephants were that Jermichael was referring to? Your thoughts on that?
I mean, first of all, I'm assuming the meeting had to be called because of how the team has been playing and struggling. Like at some point, the players have to figure it out and have a conversation about what is going on because I know that a lot of fingers can be pointed at the front office and on Steve Kerr, but I mean, there's also just a lack of joy, a lack of energy, a lack of hustle, a lack of intensity that ultimately comes from the players that we're seeing night in and night out. And there's flashes of it and it's there at times, but like, the players have even talked about it, that there's just not the same joy and fun when they come out on the floor every single day. And at some point, I do think that roster construction is partially an issue that is worth discussing and should be put on, decisions made by Bob Myers and Joe Lacob and what decisions Steve Kerr is making with his rotations. That's certainly a factor, but I do think there is also a player element to this, and they do need to be taking some responsibility for just like not playing hard and not playing with a lot of energy. So I'm assuming that's why the meeting was called. As far as the elephant in the room, it's got to be what happened with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. I mean, I don't know what else you would consider an elephant in the room, and I think that the fact that Jermichael Green said that goes to show that maybe it wasn't fully fleshed out and not everyone had fully moved on from that after, the initial punishment was announced and, hey, we're trying to move forward. Jordan Poole had said some very brief comments in the aftermath of it. And just kind of said, we don't have to be best friends, but I want to, focus on winning. And that's what we're all here to do. And we're all professionals. But, he was pretty short in his comments about it. And some of the different players on the team said they felt confident Draymond Green was going to earn their trust back. But, it hasn't really been talked about it. Not that it should be, dwelled on or anything. I know many fans are ready to move on from it, but clearly I think there were some lingering feelings in the locker room. I mean, I just don't see what other elephant in the room there could possibly be outside of that major incident happening right before the season starts.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see just kind of what was said, where the team is at on that, at this point in the season. And, were there some people that had, some things that were unsaid? I would have loved to be a fly on the wall during that conversation.
Absolutely. And then Klay Thompson added to it. Here is Klay saying that Draymond actually took a strong leadership position in the meeting. Here is Klay.
JaMychal said that you guys had a great team meeting this morning. Just want to know your thoughts on that and if that conversation with Draymond was kind of part of that meeting as well.
Very constructive meeting, and Draymond definitely held the floor, and he's such a great motivator. So we all responded very well, and just looking forward to keep starting a new win streak.
Yeah, not much specific, and I think that's expected. Yeah, you're right. I want to be a fly in that room because was Draymond taking like ownership of messing things up? Like, was he apologizing? Was he being his usual self? Any intuition creeping in, Kylen, for how you think the meeting went and what was discussed?
No, I don't have any new intuition on it. I mean, who knows? I just think Draymond Green's comments immediately after it happened, like I would have loved for him to take more responsibility in the way he spoke to the media, but who knows what he's saying behind closed doors. I just hope that what comes out of this situation is that the Warriors do figure it out. They're better for it. And this team does come together because like I said, you can certainly place some blame on coaching, on the front office, on ownership. I mean, when an organization and a franchise is struggling, it's got to be everyone taking some responsibility. But like the players also just have not been performing well. The players that the Warriors do have just not been performing well. And, to some degree, the starters have. But at the same time, like they're also, and this is something Steph Curry said that I thought was interesting. He's like, I'm also responsible for setting the tone and for figuring out how to light a fire under these second unit guys and for bringing along these young players and for, helping ignite that fire in the whole team. There can't be a drop off from the starters to the second unit when they do make those rotations in games. And, he said, as a leader of the team, I'm also responsible for that, Steph Curry. And, I think that's great leadership, but I also think that, that is expected of a veteran on the team to be setting the tone and to be making sure all the guys are up for every single game. And so even though I think you can point to the performance of the starters certainly being higher, than what we've seen in the second unit, especially the second unit just struggling with energy and defense. There also is some responsibility of the leaders on this team for figuring out how to bring everyone together and get, the second unit up to speed, get everyone on the same page because the Warriors have not been on the same page. It doesn't look like at all. So I'm hoping that what happens is that they are, that they do come together. Everyone is on the same page and that, everyone takes responsibility for their part in it, but they somehow find the joy because I think that's the number one thing to me that's been missing compared to what we've seen last season. It's the brand of basketball that this organization, has really touted since Steph Curry arrived, with Golden State and beyond that. But I'm just saying, especially, during these last couple of years and during the dynasty, that they play with so much fun. They play with so much joy. They play this high-powered offense. They throw up a lot of threes. But that they're enjoying themselves and these players love playing together. And that's like, I think one of the reasons why the Warriors are so lovable is, you hear Bob Myers saying that Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry are still sitting next to each other on the team playing, a decade later and how special that is. And to me, like, that's what makes the Warriors organization the Warriors. And it just seems like that's non-existent right now. How do we get that back? And I'm hoping the players figure that out.
Absolutely. Manuel Mars, I see what you're writing in the chat. The Kaminga needs more minutes. We're going to touch on the rotation. That was a solid game in terms of really top to bottom, but it could have been better. The Warriors won by 10. They could have won by 30. And there's also there was a sign from Klay Thompson last night that indicated things are turning around on the right track. I'll get into that. We'll get into that and so much more. First, I got to talk about a very new sponsor of this program, and that's MasterClass. Kylen, I don't know if you've heard about them. I've been hearing the commercials for years. I've heard about them for years where it's a lot of professionals And when I mean professionals, it could be anyone from John Legend, the musician who will teach songwriting in MasterClass. For those of you who love the Kardashians and that whole reality TV world, Kris Jenner has a class talking about personal branding. Mariah Carey, it's Christmas, folks, so you'll be hearing her music. She teaches using your voice as an instrument. Gordon Ramsay teaches cooking. I've heard that Steve Martin has a class as well. He's one of my all-time favorite human beings. Look, as a teacher myself, I'm a professor and I take teaching very seriously. I've heard firsthand that MasterClass operates like a classroom. It is very professional in its setting. It's very academic in its structure, and anyone can sign up for it. That's one of the best parts about this. You can learn how to write anything from a book or screenplay. You can learn how to communicate with your boss. You can learn how to make a dinner worthy of a Michelin star. Whatever you're interested in, there is a class for you. Sounds incredible, right? You can do it. It's easy. It's all available. You can find any class you want by going to masterclass.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. When you're done with us, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Kylen Mills on Twitter and Instagram at Kylen Mills. I want to play this one more soundbite for the show, and this is also from Klay Thompson. And I want to touch on him a little bit because this was one of his best games of the season. I believe it was his second highest scoring output of the season, but he looked efficient out there. And when you see Klay Thompson, and this is only going to be exclusive for the YouTube viewers, but when you see Klay Thompson folding up that paper airplane, you know things are going in the right direction. Here's Klay.
Steve said he thought you kind of actively took a more patient approach to the game tonight. I mean, how conscious, I guess, was that decision?
Yeah, I thought about that a lot. I watched a lot of film, and sometimes, yeah. I mean, me and Draymond had a great conversation this morning. He's just told me to be patient and trust the team, and I thought I exemplified that tonight.
You say you just watched film on the Phoenix game, and I guess what did
Every
you see?
single game I play.
Well,
So yes, the Phoenix game.
Yeah. What did you see that I guess you felt like you really needed to correct?
Got great looks early, but might have rushed a few rather than swinging the ball and getting a really easy one. Not cutting with enough force, and I thought tonight I did that better. It was just cutting off the ball and being patient, and when you make the easy ones early, the hard ones go in later.
I look, when he's sitting there folding that paper airplane, he's got the box sheet in front of him, and half his focus is on answering the questions. I love his snarky reply where he's like, I watch film for every game, damn it. How dare you ask me that? And he's meanwhile folding up that paper airplane. That's a very positive sign. And when you look at Klay Thompson as a whole in that game last night, again, one of his best outings of the year. He scored 20 points, was 4 for 10 from three, shot 50% from the field. He was patient. He was not forcing shots. I loved what I saw from him in 31 minutes of play. Kylen, your thoughts on Klay Thompson?
I thought Klay brought up a great point in that statement. And just, I noticed in the Phoenix game, and I think a lot of fans are getting frustrated that oftentimes he was forcing up shots or taking the more difficult shot rather than passing or moving the ball around the horn to create a more wide open shot. And, I don't think that he was doing it intentionally to be selfish. I think that he just so desperately wants to score and wants to do well that, and a theme for him this season generally has just been forcing up shots that are contested shots or difficult shots when there could be a better shot coming in the possession if you would just, keep the ball moving and as he mentioned, just be patient, follow the plan, trust the team. And I think he looked much more comfortable. He looked like he was much more patient. He looked like he did that several times last night. And I think that's the key for Klay Thompson this season. Not forcing it, being patient, letting the game come to him. I feel like we kind of talk about these same themes, all throughout the season and even last
Mhm.
year when he was coming back from the injury. But since those back-to-back injuries, Klay Thompson wants it so bad. He wants to get back to that level he was at before. He wants to score the way he was before, but he's got to let the game come to him. He can't be forcing up so many shots. And I can't remember how many shots he forced up or he put up against Phoenix, but it was a ridiculous number. And just half those shots weren't good shots. And he's not putting
Yeah.
himself in a position to put the ball, in the hoop because he's putting up these incredibly difficult shots. And especially when you're a player who's trying to get a shooter specifically, who's trying to get out of a slump, find the easy ones, find the easy ones first and help build up your confidence. And I think he's right that when you do that early, then the harder shots later in the game will fall. And
Yeah.
that was another great point made by Klay Thompson. So I think his performance last night was really encouraging. I just hope he continues to, do that and to, continue trusting his team and letting the game come to him moving forward.
Yeah, in that Phoenix game, he was 6 for 17 from the field, 3 for 9 from
Yes,
beyond the arc.
17.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game. He still scored 19 points, but it wasn't a great game. It hasn't been a great season so far, but that was encouraging. Again, the 20 points. I want to shift gears to the rotation because one pattern continued last night, despite the fact that the Warriors controlled that game pretty much from beginning to end. They won by 10, and they should have won, I thought, by 30. They should have dominated and blown out the New York Knicks. There's a spell in the game where they were up by 22. Jonathan Kuminga gets taken out. Anthony Lamb comes in, and then all of a sudden, a 22-point lead gets diminished down to 11. I have nothing against Anthony Lamb, okay? Except my one issue I have with Anthony Lamb is when he's taking minutes away from either Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody. And I don't support that. I really believe Kuminga and Moody bring more to the table in literally every facet of the game than Anthony Lamb does. I've been perpetuating on this show repeatedly now that the Warriors have found a second unit where if they have Poole, DiVincenzo, Moody, Kuminga, Lamb, and JaMychal Green. Those are your 6 of your second unit. And as long as you're playing 5 of those 6, you should be okay. That's a solid second unit. But the problem is last night, again, he had a short leash on Kuminga, played him early in the game. We never saw him again. Moody was a DNP. And I say that despite the fact he played 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes were an absolute garbage time at the end of the game. I don't understand Kerr's continued aversion to playing the youngsters, and it's hurting the team. And Anthony Lamb, as much praise as he's been getting in last night's game where he played almost 15 minutes, he had 0 points. He was a team worst -17 in the plus minus. He committed 3 fouls in only 14 minutes of play. He was rushing his shot. He was 0 for 3 from beyond the arc, and those are the only shots he took. Look, Anthony Lamb is fine, but I don't like Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody losing minutes, valuable developmental minutes that they need to gain experience and reps in this game. Your thoughts, in my opinion, that Kuminga and Moody deserve minutes over Anthony Lamb, that the team would be better if they did that. What do you think?
I haven't disliked Anthony Lamb off the bench in recent games. I think he's done fairly well. I don't think he looked good last night specifically. And it's funny because JaMychal Green was like hitting everything last night. And I think previously he hadn't looked great.
Yes.
So, we talked about it in our last episode, how, I do understand that figuring out a rotation with this group is going to be a challenge because I don't think that anyone in that second unit has really established themselves as indispensable outside of Jordan Poole, because we know what Jordan Poole can do, but he's still been inconsistent this season. But still, I think that it's very clear that Jordan Poole is going to be the 6th man coming off the bench. But beyond that, I don't think that anyone has really separated themselves. And, so I understand that it's difficult, but to me, it's the young players that are the future of the organization versus a JaMychal Green or versus an Anthony Lamb. But as we've talked about, it's just the push and pull. And it's the challenge of, that I think Steve Kerr is dealing with, is that the team feels like they can't trust these young players and they can't win with these young players in the game. So they feel like when they're losing, they have to turn to some of the veterans in order just to get wins. Is that the right strategy? Do you think that'll help the Warriors in the long term? I don't know. To me, I would like to see more of the young players play. And if,
Same.
and the Warriors have been struggling anyway, I personally, think that their development is more important than early season wins and losses. Although I do get like when the Warriors lost 5 straight, like, yeah, you got to do something just to get a win, to get any kind of momentum. But I do think that they've got to find a way to get the young players more minutes. And I was surprised last night, and I've been surprised just to see Moody work his way out of the rotation, because I think he's been the most ready of the young players. Something kind of interesting that I tweeted that Steve Kerr had said during pregame when he was asked about Moses Moody potentially playing and kind of how he's been worked out of the rotation and what his role is. He talked about how what he needs to see from Moody is that he's not turning the ball over. And he pointed to that as potentially being an issue or a reason, why he hasn't been playing as much.
I saw that.
And and he said that he thought that Moody's learning. He's still going to have his opportunities. There's still going to be times when he gets minutes. But that was one thing Steve Kerr pointed to. And I thought was kind of interesting because I don't know that I see Moody as being a huge turnover problem or liability. I was very curious after that to look up the numbers, and I hadn't yet as to exactly, how many times he's turning the ball over. But like, I was kind of surprised that was kind of one of the main, things that Kerr pointed to as turnovers, because I just hadn't really thought he'd done a terrible job taking care of the ball. Sure, there've been turnovers and there's going to be young player mistakes. And he brought up, making shovel passes in the lane, in traffic, and how that's not necessarily going to work in the NBA. And yeah, there's something to that. But I have been surprised that Moses Moody has been fringe as of late. And like you said, basically a DNP last night. And then Jonathan Kuminga, I thought had played well recently. What did you think? I mean, last night, again, I feel like he's a player that in a small sample size, you're not going to necessarily see his best because he needs time to work through some mistakes and have the confidence of knowing that he's not going to be yanked after 9 minutes. But I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like Kuminga's been playing well. Better.
Same. And just to add to that, the comment you're referring to, the Steve Kerr, and I think it was during pregame where he basically is applying a double standard to Moody versus Steph and some of the veterans, where he's basically saying if Steph and Klay and Dre are turning the ball over, committing fouls, he trusts them and he's going to play them regardless. But the moment Moody does anything wrong, he's going to get the yank. And the stats don't confirm that he's a turnover machine. He's averaging 1.1 turnovers per game in 16 minutes of play. So even if you played 32 minutes, that would be 2 turnovers a game. That's not a crazy clip. That's not enough to reduce his minutes for. He's averaging less than 1 personal foul a game. It's at 0.9, again, in 16 minutes of play. Whereas if you double that, you would only have 2 fouls a game, less, even less than that. I don't get it. And I just don't like nonsensical decisions. The moment, and Kerr's doing that a lot this year.
Makes no damn sense.
It just doesn't. It just makes no damn sense. But look,
you pointed out, I'm curious, you pointed out Lamb, but also like, couldn't Kuminga be getting minutes instead of JaMychal Green, even at potentially at the 5? I would like to see Kuminga get some of those minutes as well.
But you don't think JaMychal's doing okay? Like last night, for example, let's touch on this in just a moment because we got a BetOnline read to do real quick here. And then we'll touch on that in a moment because I see people in the chat saying that as well, that maybe Kuminga should get the JaMychal Green's minutes. I don't agree with that. I'll explain in just a minute why. First, we got to give some love to BetOnline, though. And I want to look at the line for tomorrow night because the Warriors are back on the road. They've had a weird schedule this year. Just the Friday games are weird because a lot of that's because of national TV. But that's a huge reason why we're doing a show on Saturday, for example, because it makes no sense to do a show right before, a game, before the Warriors play. But I want to see if the line is available. I'm trying to find it here. Here we go. For the Warriors and the Rockets tomorrow, and that line is not available. Damn it. Well, it will be soon. And you can get all that at BetOnline. Ned, Kylen, what will be your guess line? Do you think the Warriors will be favored in Houston tomorrow?
The Warriors be favored in Houston. See, the thing is, like, I feel like it should be a yes, but since the Warriors can't win on the road this season, like, how are they going to be favored in any road game?
Yeah.
Did you find the line or no?
That's a good point. Well, you can find a lot of information by just going to betonline.net. They're your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You can even bet on the Santa Cruz Warriors, folks, you degenerates. You from football to basketball to soccer and esports, they've got it all at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available everywhere. Gregors says, good to see you again, Kylen and Cyrus. Right back at you. I think you're out in like Poland or somewhere, right? We've communicated with him before. There's another hello as well for the international crew. Kenny Powers is in Germany now. Playing, is there a baseball league in Germany,
Yeah.
Kenny? Are you still playing ball?
Kenny, what are you doing?
That was such a good show. JaMychal Green. So I think he has found a fantastic role as the team's backup five. I really do. He's a strong player. He's still a 3-point threat offensively, so he does space the floor. And last night, he was the only bench player by a mile who was in the plus minus. The Warriors did repeat a similar pattern they have all season. Their starting five were exemplary. The worst starters were Klay and Steph, who had plus 18 in the plus minus. Looney, Green, and Wiggins were 20 or above. But then you go to the bench, Moody was minus 8 in those 2 garbage time minutes, right? I can't even count that. Kuminga was minus 7. He was also playing in those garbage time minutes. I think he was like 0 or minus 1 before that. DiVincenzo was minus 11, and he actually played okay, I thought. Anthony Lamb, minus 17. Jordan Poole, minus 15. The only player off the bench who was in the positive was JaMychal at plus 8. He also scored 12 points, only grabbed 3 rebounds, but he finally figured out his shooting woes. I like him. I know he had that one bad game, just the last game they played where he couldn't make a layup to save his life, but he kind of figured that out tonight or last night. I like him. You need veterans out there, like when people call Anthony Lamb a veteran, maybe by age, but he's barely has any NBA experience. And I'm not trying to hate on Lamb. I don't mind Lamb. I like lamb chops. I just want Kuminga or Moody to get minutes over him. You can play 5 people out there with Lamb. Poole, DiVincenzo, Kuminga, Lamb, JaMychal Green. That's a solid second unit. I don't mind that. But just don't be playing Lamb over Kuminga and over Moody. That's where I'm drawing the line, What do you think? You like JaMychal Green losing minutes to Lamb or Kuminga? What are your thoughts?
I don't like JaMychal Green losing minutes to Lamb. I'm just saying when I'm looking at opportunities for Jonathan Kuminga to play, can he take 5 minutes from both Lamb and JaMychal Green? I thought JaMychal Green looked good last night, and I think that putting him at that 5 is a better fit for him than when he was playing more of a power forward role. But
Agreed.
To me, he just has not looked great, I think, during this last stretch of games. And you mentioned him being able to space the floor, because he's a threat from the perimeter. The last 10 games, he shot 16% from 3.
Yeah,
and
true.
on the road specifically, he shot 9% from 3. So
True.
to me, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like he hasn't shot great. On the road, his field goal percentage is 34%. Again, 9% from 3. So to me, it's just like, dude, you don't even have to guard him if he's out. If I'm defending him, I'm sagging off because he's not hitting anything from the perimeter. And then he's averaging 4 rebounds a game in the last 10. And I don't know. He's averaging almost 3 fouls, a little over a turnover.
His stats aren't great right now.
Last night, I think he played well. I just don't think that he's played consistently well. And I think he's had some really bad shooting nights. And I'm not saying don't play JaMychal Green, because I think he also has a fit in this, in this team. And I think when he plays well, he does add to the floor. But I could see Kuminga getting some of those minutes, and I don't mind Kuminga getting some run at the 5 as well. Super athletic. I think he's been doing well on defense. He can provide some rim protection. So I don't hate Kuminga getting some time. And again, maybe not taking all the time, kind of like you're similarly advocating for Anthony Lamb. I'm just saying take some of his minutes. And maybe if Kuminga took a little bit from each, 5 from each, then he's playing closer to 20 minutes a game. I would love to see Kuminga get 20 minutes a game. Absolutely.
I would too. And for everyone, and look, the chat has a lot of mixed reactions here. Look, JaMychal Green, I'm not advocating for him to be an offensive threat. But he does give you rebounding. He gives you toughness. You need someone out there to handle all the physical contact, bruising it up with other bigs. It saves the wear and tear that a player like Kuminga would be experiencing as a result if he was playing at the 5 instead. You can have one of your 5 players on the floor not be a great 3-point shooter. You can survive with that. And that's all I'm advocating for. I just don't want wear and tear for players who are like a Kuminga, for example, who relies on his athleticism so much, who does have a level of finesse to his game. And then there's the whole James Wiseman thing. At some point, is he ever going to come back? I just still, again, my whole thing is still like, you have these 3 youngsters, you invested so much in them. I don't agree with everyone in the chat saying that Kuminga is a bad player. Like Paul Revere, for example. Oh, sorry, I published the wrong one. Paul Revere said right here, Kuminga is garbage with potential to be trash. He's all hype. I do not agree with that at all. And if you look at any game he plays where he plays extended minutes, 20 plus minutes a night, the same goes for Moody. They perform incredibly. They play great ball. They just never get that shot. You can't judge a player when he's only getting 5 or 6 minutes at a time. Let me ask everyone this, and I'll ask you this as well, Kylen. If you were Kylen Mills, if you were Jonathan Kuminga, if you were Moses Moody, I mean, James Wiseman is Santa Cruz right now, so we'll save him for another day. Let's say you put yourself in their shoes. I try to do this a lot, right? It's called having perspective, and hopefully you present a well-rounded opinion based on this. If you're Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga right now, if you're one of these 2 young kids and you're routinely being told by your coach off just little mistakes you make here and there, you're not good enough, sit down. How's that gonna feel to you? Like as a young person who's 20 years old, is that gonna build confidence? Or is that gonna make you feel dejected? Is that gonna make you feel confused? Is that gonna make you feel like you're not a part of the team? I just don't agree. I don't agree with the handling of these youngsters, Kylen. Your thoughts, please, because I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm alone in this opinion, and that's okay. But I'm sticking with it, man. I really believe this, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I just don't think so at this point because they're not getting a shot to prove anything, really. What's your take?
I think that a lot of people do agree that Steve Kerr shouldn't have as short of a leash as he has with the young players, because young players have to be able to work through mistakes and play through mistakes, and they're definitely not going to be perfect, and they're not going to bring all of the same things the veterans bring, because they're still learning and they're going to make the mistakes that young players make, and they've got to be able to work through that. I do think there is something to what you said about confidence, because it can't give you a lot of confidence if you go out on the floor and the first turnover that you commit that you're going to be pulled. And then you've got players who are going out there nervous about making mistakes, or scared to make mistakes, or nervous about being pulled out because they know the leash is short. And that's something that, we brought up a few weeks ago when Jonathan Kuminga finally started to get minutes, and something that Marcus Thompson, I want to credit him from The Athletic for bringing up first, is that, Jonathan Kuminga is a player who has to know that he's going to get extended minutes, that he can play free, and that he can make those mistakes, and that he's not going to be punished for them or pulled out or, yanked from the lineup, and that he's a player who does so much better when he does have that confidence of knowing that he's going to be getting extended minutes, and that, basically he's not going to get pulled on this short leash. And in so many of the games early this season, Kuminga and Moody and James Wiseman as well, but they have all had Steve Kerr has clearly had such a short leash with them. And I just feel like there's a bit of a double standard, because we see some of these other veterans who are going in the second unit making similar mistakes and not getting pulled out as quickly. And, clearly Steve Kerr trusts them more. But, to me, like you said, Anthony Lamb isn't like a veteran's veteran. And it's something that Steve Kerr has actually said on the podium. Well, he is a little bit older. He does have a little bit more experience. I know he hasn't been with this organization, but we just trust him a little bit more. And to me, like, that's concerning, because Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody were part of the championship team last year. These are players that you drafted. These are players this organization picked. And at some point, you're going to have to put that trust in them that they're going to figure it out, and that they're going to play through mistakes and come out the other side better for it. So I don't know. I guess those are my initial thoughts. I'd have to think that
Yeah.
it's really tough as a young player in your second season, knowing if you make a mistake, you're going to get pulled and that you're going to be, only given 8 to 9 minutes a night, and your first or second mistake, that's going to be the end of it. Like I would think that just giving them more time would help them build that confidence. And I'll be very curious to see. One thing I do want to mention before I end my thought is that Steve Kerr was asked in pregame last night about the potential of Moody or Kuminga going to Santa Cruz to get more minutes, just playing with the Santa Cruz Warriors in the G League. And he said it's absolutely on the table. He said it's not something they have specific plans for right now, or that, is in the immediate plans, but down the road, that's something they definitely would consider and is a possibility, even if seeing Kuminga and Moody in the G League because of that.
Right.
Give them time
Right.
to work through mistakes. I don't know.
Yeah, I
have
wanna
thoughts. I think that both of them could easily play through mistakes at the NBA level. I do.
Yeah, I want to. Gilbert Arbala writes he should collab with Athletic Alchemy. He's coming on the show Tuesday. I've heard a lot of people hype him up. I've watched a few of his YouTube shows. It is funny. He's got a lot of influence because a lot of the verbiage he uses, I suddenly see fans repeating. Like, for example, I suddenly saw a lot of people saying there are a lot of people questioning James Wiseman's motor, right? That's a very subjective thing to say. Motor by itself is a metaphor. And Alchemy's the one who originated that. So I'm very curious to bring him on Tuesday. We're going to have a fun chat. In terms of what he can do about the young players getting minutes, nothing, because Kerr is we've talked about this word gatekeeper before. Kerr is the ultimate gatekeeper. He handles all the rotations and the minutes. So when people like Paul Revere on here, and Paul Revere is just hating on Jonathan Kuminga, Revere, you're basing all your judgment on strictly what Kerr is saying. So look, if you have blind faith in Steve Kerr, more power to you. He has earned that. It's hard to dispute that. But look, for someone like me who's been analyzing, covering, observing this team minute by minute on and off the court, Kerr is not infallible. He makes mistakes sometimes. I want to give him credit for this. He does thankfully eventually autocorrect. Sometimes takes him a while to do so. And I just don't agree with the way he's handling these young players. Kuminga's minutes have gone down from last year to this year. Somebody tweeted at me like these clips from the preseason when Kerr was actually playing the three youngsters. Like Wiseman was getting a run, Moody and Kuminga were getting heavy minutes, and they were obliterating the opposition. And then the moment the regular season started, and I think they got some minutes in that Lakers game on opening night, but ever since then, he has bailed on him. And look, this could be something to do with practice that we're not seeing. It could have something to do with maybe we've seen Stephen Curry get frustrated on the court sometimes with these youngsters. And maybe Steve Kerr is very protective of Steph and thinks that's, maybe he's making these decisions based on that. I don't know. But all I can tell you is that Jonathan Kuminga is not garbage. He is actually a really, really good player. And I think he's going to be a superstar in this game. Moses Moody is a solid player, could be an all-star someday. But until they actually play, you can't judge him one way or another. All I'm saying is don't judge him just because Steve Kerr decides to not give them minutes. That is not by itself an indicator of a player being good or bad. Steve Kerr just has a very short leash when it comes to young players, and he's being tested right now. I was happy last game he took fault for the way the team started. I mean, they're still 7-9. They're still looking for their first road win of the season, and we'll find out tomorrow in Houston if they do that. I don't know. How are you feeling, Colin? You feeling any better from when we first started?
Yes. I just was curious. I saw someone say that Jonathan Kuminga has hands of stone in the comments and that he's a turnover machine. So I was just curious. In the last 10 games, he's averaging 1 turnover a game in close to 17 minutes. I mean, that's pretty on par with the rest of the Warriors, that's not. And, you double his minutes, like you said, to 34 minutes or a higher volume as to what some of the starters are seeing. And that would be 2 turnovers a game, which, again, to me, doesn't show a turnover machine by any means. I think
that was Paul Revere right here. He wrote, "Y'all keep riding the potential Kuminga train all you want." He's dropping y'alls. Are you like from the South? Dude does nothing but stumble and turn the ball over. Although I guess y'all is kind of a trendy thing now, right? As everyone said. I don't mean to hate on that. I'm not hating on it anyways, but okay. Hands of Stone. That was Paul Revere. Paul Revere, thank you for engaging. Really appreciate it. We're just gonna have to disagree. Regarding
I don't
Kuminga,
know that I feel like he has hands of stone or that he's a turnover
no,
machine.
I don't agree with either of that. Yeah.
And I don't think he's a terrible player. I just think that he's still learning and he's still growing. And the team knew when they drafted Jonathan Kuminga that he was going to be a project. I just think a lot of people expected him to come into this year being a lot more ready than he is.
Yeah,
But
I
in
think
order
he
for
is.
him to get there, he's got to play. He's got to play.
Agreed. I think he is ready, but that's just me. Anything else? Are we good? Are you gonna go take a nap? What's your plan for the rest of the weekend? Nap sounds
No, I'm not going to
beautiful.
take a nap. I've got a Friendsgiving tonight and I'm about to clean and walk my dog. So
I love your dogs. Where do they go? They were. Is that one of your pups back there? Or did they leave?
no, they left.
Oh, they left. Okay. All right.
They
They
were out.
definitely
They
got.
were bored. They were like, why is everyone hating Minga? We're not about this life. They're about the JK slander.
I hear you. Yeah. All right. Well, the Warriors play the Rockets tomorrow, and Kyle and you and I will be back at it on Monday. I want to look at the schedule real quick because after that Rockets game, what comes after that? Let's see. Okay, got the page up now. Then they play. Oh, they're another back-to-back. What's going on with that? I don't know. Well, you want to talk about it off the air, whether we're going to do a show Monday before or after, because they're at
Ooh.
Orleans. They're going. It's a 2-game road trip. The Rockets Sunday, another back-to-back. They play the Pelicans Monday. Want to figure it out? Do you want to commit now? What do you think?
We can
Monday.
discuss it. I don't know.
Sounds
We
good.
got
Sounds
to
good.
take a look at the schedule. You will hear from us at some point on Monday. We'll get back at it. Whether it's pregame or postgame, back-to-backs should be an opportunity for us to see the youngs, though, to see the young players. So I'm excited, and I
Absolutely.
enjoy back-to-backs now for that reason because we know the Warriors are going to rest some of the vets, and Klay's not going to be playing on the back end of a back-to-back more than likely, and I would be shocked if we see a couple others sitting, and that means the door is open for Jonathan Kuminga and for Moses Moody to play more, and I want to see them play more. And the last time this happened, I thought the young players did well and brought a good amount of energy. So I'm excited about Sunday and Monday's games.
Beautiful. Right back at you. Same. I love New Orleans. So let's hope for a good road trip. Let's hope they get at least win one of these 2 games. The winless thing is absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy.
It is crazy. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me again at Dog Surf Roadshow and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you as always for engaging. Absolutely love it. I wish we could vocalize the people. I wish there was a way we could do it like old school sports talk radio where you get callers. If we can figure that out, I'm going to do that because I grew up. That's my entire career was sports talk radio for the first half of it for 10 years, and it was all about engaging with callers. It's fun. The text thing just isn't the same, but better that than nothing. But anyway, so thank you, Kylen. Always appreciate you, and have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.